You might be familiar with some of the differences between a condenser microphone and a dynamic microphone, but I've personally never used a condenser microphone, or at least not a real condenser microphone. We'll talk about this a little bit later. So today, let's take a look at one of the most popular ones out there and see if I can condense all that information into a review that NT1 can understand, because it's the Rode NT1. And before we get started, even though this is not a sponsored video, I'm gonna show Rode a little bit of love, because if you know my channel, you know I cover a lot of Rode products. I use a lot of Rode products, and a couple weeks ago, I was on Twitter and I mentioned in some conversation for some reason that I had never used a condenser microphone, but I really wanted to get one, and I was thinking about the Rode NT1. And then literally a few days later, at my doorstep, completely unknown and unannounced, this showed up. Rode sent me the NT1 entire kit. They didn't send this to me with any expectations of me making a video. They don't get to look at the video before it comes out or anything. They literally just sent it as a gift, and this had been in my shopping cart online for a while because I was gonna buy this exact microphone, so that worked out really well for me. And just to spoil the review a bit, the NT1 has been out for a while, and it's a really popular microphone, and it has a reputation as being a great sounding microphone. So I'm not gonna bring anything new to that conversation. It's a great microphone, it sounds great, it's reasonably priced, and it's an awesome choice for a condenser microphone. But maybe we can still look at it a little more closely, test it out what it sounds like in this environment with my lovely voice, and then also look at some competitors that are a little more affordable, but also totally, I shouldn't say that, competitors that are maybe not as high quality. So just to start things off, that kit is pretty cool. I was going to just buy the microphone by itself, but the kit comes with the Rode NT1, which is an incredibly well-built microphone. This one's all matte black. It's totally metal. You can see the giant condenser capsule up in there. And then this ring is how you connect it to the shock mount. It's designed and made in Australia. That's something I do really love about Rode, and I didn't realize this. I know they're based in Australia, but it wasn't until a few months ago that I realized they actually have their factory there too, so they design and manufacture everything right there, which is really cool. You get this really nifty shock mount. It can articulate a little bit, and it's got a 5/8 inch connector right here, but the kit does come with a 5/8 to 3/8, I think those are the right numbers, 5/8, yeah. The big one to the kind of medium-sized one adapter, so that way you could put this directly on something like the PSA1 boom arm, or a tabletop stand, or anything else that uses this size of a connector. You also get a super cool metal mesh pop filter. This already has a metal grate in here with several layers of diffusion, but this also then adds a few more. If you try to make plosives through it or blow into it, none of the air gets through. The kit comes with a giant XLR cable, which is super nice quality. Comes with a gold tasseled pouch for the NT1. Looks like it's Rode Cavassier or something. It also comes with this, which is the Rode AI1, not their first generation of artificial intelligence, but their single channel audio interface, the Audio Interface 1. And then also a USB Type A to Type C cable for the interface. So we will check out the mic with this a little later, but we're gonna start out with just the Rodecaster Pro. And that's everything that comes in the kit. So that really is everything you need to get started. And I've got this little tabletop stand that I can attach the shock mount to, angle it how I want. Now the NT1, like most condenser microphones, is a side address microphone, so you don't wanna speak into the top of it, you don't wanna speak into the back of it. It only picks up sounds from the front. And there is, as I'm tapping on it, there's a little bit of a shock mount inside, and you can actually feel the capsule kind of like moving a little bit. So there's built-in stabilization to the microphone, and then there's also the shock mount here. The front of the microphone is where the Rode logo is, and the gold dot. So that's the easy way to know. Just speak towards the gold dot. And then you can just connect your XLR cable, and now your microphone is ready to go. As long as the XLR cable is actually running into something. In this case, I have it running into the Rodecaster Pro. You're not listening to this microphone now, you're listening to the Video Mic NTG. We're gonna switch over to this in just a second. And of course there is the pop filter, which just slides in right here. Now once this microphone is in the shock mount with the pop filter, it's pretty large. So On screen, it's easy to kind of find yourself hiding behind it. And with a condenser microphone like this, you do need an XLR cable, and it does need to go into some sort of mixer or interface. And not only that, it needs phantom power in order to work. Fortunately, basically every XLR mixer, every interface, I literally can't think of one at any price point that doesn't offer phantom power. It's a pretty standard thing, but that's what this microphone needs in order to run. So I'm gonna pop on my headphones here. To start off with this, I'm actually gonna take off the pop filter just so we can hear the microphone by itself. And now, how far away am I? I am, I don't know, a fist's distance away from the NT1. So let's switch over to the NT1. Right now you're listening to the VideoMic NTG, and now you're listening to the Rode NT1 running into the Rodecaster Pro with no processing or effects or anything like that. This is just the driest microphone signal I can get. Couple things to note here though, which is pretty cool. I just happen to have a PodMic here. And if I switch over to the PodMic, which is a dynamic microphone, this is running into a cloud lifter to boost the signal because dynamic microphones tend to be a little quieter than condenser microphones. It's running into the Rodecaster with the gain set to plus 35, and then the fader on channel 2 is just above halfway, and this is how loud that sounds. It's peaking right around 15 on the broadcast meters on the Rodecaster Pro. And now just for reference, this is the NT1 running directly into the Rodecaster with the gain set to 20, no processing, and the volume fader is below halfway, and I'm still peaking at the same level I was with the PodMic. So what that means is not only with a condenser microphone do you not need something like a cloud lifter or a FET head, but you actually can't use one because these need phantom power, and so does a cloud lifter or a FET head. So if you plug this into one of those, the power will not pass through to power the microphone. This doesn't need it to begin with, but this needs to be plugged directly into your mixer or your interface so the power can come straight here to this microphone. Now the Rodecaster Pro does have an NT1 setting, so I'm going to turn that on right now. And this is the NT1 setting, which turns on like the de-esser, the compressor, adds in a little bit of processing, kind of changes the tone and the sound just a little bit of the microphone. We'll leave that on for right now because this is how Rode thinks it should sound. I actually think that in this case, as much as I tend to leave processing off with my microphones, I think I like this. I like this a lot. And if I back up a little bit, now you can still hear me right here, which is a very comfortable distance with a condenser microphone. You can hear some of those plosives. Peter Piper pitched a podcast. If I pop on the pop filter, Peter Piper pitched a podcast. That's crazy. Like, pa 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 pa. This thing really reduces plosives to the point where you like never have to think about it anymore, and that is pretty darn awesome. If I increase the volume, I can actually be a little further away and still talk pretty comfortably. I'm peaking at the same level on the Rodecaster Pro, but now I'm probably closer to a foot away from the microphone. Speaking of a foot, do you know why your nose can't be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot. All right, we could talk about the directionality of this because like I mentioned, you want to speak directly in front of it. If I get off axis a little bit, it's actually shockingly consistent, basically like in this, I don't know that I would say 180 degrees, because if I go sideways, then my voice starts to disappear. And if I'm talking into the back of the microphone, it just sounds bizarre. So this is definitely one where you want it facing directly at you or your instrument or whatever you're recording, and that's going to give you the best sound and the best quality. Let's bring back the PodMic and keep the PodMic at the same distance. This is where I think things start to look a little different. The PodMic signal is significantly lower, at least on the meters on the Rodecaster, because I'm so far away. A dynamic microphone works much better the closer that you are to it. That's not to say you shouldn't be close to a condenser microphone, but it's nice that you don't have to be up on the microphone the whole time. You can be a little further away from it and still get a strong signal. The other thing though, when we're talking about condenser versus dynamic microphones, is how much of the environment they pick up. So right now I'm in my room. You might know a little bit about this room. It has some sound treatment. I did recently invest in a couple of more like professional level sound panels. And there's carpet on the floor, so that helps. And there's also a lot of stuff in here, so that helps too. But this is not really a well sound treated room. I would honestly give it like a C+, maybe a B-. So all of the dynamic microphones that I normally use actually work pretty well in here because they just sort of pick up the sound that's directly in front of the microphone and reject everything else. I live in the desert. It's hot. It's over 100 degrees today, and the air conditioner is on. I've got dogs, which sometimes you hear in the background. And a condenser microphone in general is going to pick up more of that environmental sound. So you're going to get more of that room tone. You're going to get the sounds of other people talking and making noises. I don't know, snapping their fingers over here, as people do. But you're also going to pick up more of, I guess stuff like keyboards, which I didn't think was a big deal until I was using this microphone on a live stream and I was typing, and then I realized, oh, that sound is being picked up in the microphone pretty loudly, whereas something like a condenser microphone might be a little bit better at rejecting that noise that's not there. I don't type like this. Oh gosh, I just ruined I ruined all of my Ecamm settings. So that's just something to be aware of. Also, in my case, this chair that I'm in squeaks a lot, and I'm very conscious of that on podcasts and videos because it can be annoying, but also, depending on how I do it, it can kind of sound like a bodily function, and that could be embarrassing, especially if there's not a video component to the thing I'm recording. So just being aware that a condenser microphone is going to pick up a little more of your environment is really, really important. But all in all, the basic sounds of this microphone I think are really, really great. Now, I know that I'm running it through the Rodecaster Pro, which is a $600 mixer on the NT1 setting. Let's try the Rode AI1, which is one of the most affordable, simplest audio interfaces you can buy, and see how it sounds here. So right now you're listening to the NT1 through the AI1 into Adobe Audition. I have no effects or anything in Audition. I've got the gain on the AI1 set to about 12 o'clock, and that's also where I'm monitoring through my headphones. And the AI1 was super easy to set up. I'll do a whole separate video on this where I compare it to the Scarlett Focusrite 2i2, which is the other interface that I have. But this was plug and play, connected it showed up right away. To turn on phantom power, you just press in the gain button and then the red dot for phantom power shows up, and you can also monitor directly. And there's a little green indicator that will show when your level is good, when you're starting to clip, and then when you're clipping. So if you get this kit and you take these things and connect them to your computer and record, this is exactly what it will sound like. I'm actually even using the XLR cable that came with it. I think this sounds amazing. Now, another thing to be aware of with condenser microphones, since they do tend to pick up a little more of the environmental sound, is if you're using two of them together and they're close, that's where you're probably going to run into some mic bleed. I don't have that issue too much with dynamic microphones, like when Heather and I are right next to each other, because they're better at isolating sound. It might not be a problem. It's just something to be aware of. I don't have two condenser microphones here to test that out with. Otherwise, I would. And I know you might be thinking, hey, Tom, isn't one of the most popular videos on your channel all about the Neewer NW800 condenser microphone? And you would be correct. This microphone has basically become a meme on my channel for how bad it sounds. And while I have seen other videos and heard things where people have taken this microphone, this very inexpensive, typically under $30 microphone, and EQ'd it to sound pretty decent, mine sounds like hot garbage. And I don't feel bad for saying that because this is also not a condenser microphone. And what I mean by that is a few days ago, I was watching a video by Angus at Maker's Muse, which is an amazing channel that I've loved for many years. And he bought a very inexpensive microphone at Kmart of all places. And he said that it looked like it was a rebranded Neewer NW700, which I don't know if Neewer even manufactures these or if they just buy them and rebrand them themselves, because I've seen similar microphones with other brand names on them. I just think Neewer is the most popular. And his microphone sounded pretty good, actually, but when he took it apart, he realized that it wasn't a true condenser microphone. So this is the Rode NT1 running through the AI1 into Audition, and this is the NW800 running into the Rodecaster Pro with no effects. This is how it sounds, no effects. Great band. So there's a couple things here. You could work with this microphone to EQ it a little bit, and then you've got yourself an inexpensive condenser microphone. However, this is what I mean when I say that this is not a true condenser microphone. Take this microphone out. You can unscrew the bottom of this. The housing just comes right off. You can see the circuit board. Now, I will say with this microphone, there are capacitors for phantom power, so it is actually functioning off of phantom power, which is a good thing if it's claiming to be a condenser microphone. But when you heard it just now, no doubt you might have been, wow, no doubt. I've been talking a lot about 90s bands. There's two little screws right here. And then when you remove it, you can see that it's a very, very cheap, cheesy microphone capsule on top. And that's To be expected, it's a very inexpensive microphone. That's not shocking. Granted, I'm not an expert in this area. From what I know, this is not a true condenser. Yes, technically this is a condenser microphone capsule, but this is an electret condenser microphone, which means that it works a little bit differently. And if you're wondering why, like, hey, this microphone sounds kind of like a bad phone or a weird webcam camera or something, yeah, it's because electret condenser microphones can be very small, they take very little power, and they're what's often used in small electronic devices that need microphones, but they're not going to be broadcast quality microphones like the NT1. That's what you have here. So technically, yes, it is a condenser microphone. When they list it on their sales page as a condenser microphone, sure, but it's not the same as this. If you look, I'm not going to take the NT1 apart because this is just a beautiful work of art, but if you look at the capsule in here, and I'll try to put some close-ups so you can see what I'm talking about, it is an entirely different thing than this Happy Meal mess right here. And this is why that kind of upsets me as somebody who is diving into the world of condenser microphones for the first time. If you're looking at microphones and you look at this, even though it's very fairly priced at less than $300, that's still a lot of money, right? So then if you look at other options and you go type in condenser microphone and you see something popping up online that looks like, hey, this is sort of the same kind of microphone. It says that it has the same name and it's hundreds of dollars cheaper. I'll just get that one. And while you might be able to work some magic and EQ it, and then also from what I know about this microphone, different copies have different sound quality. Some do sound pretty decent and some sound pretty terrible, like mine. That bothers me because it could mean that someone's not actually getting what they think that they're getting. Here's a condenser microphone. Here's a less expensive condenser microphone. I will save money and get the less expensive one. And then you're going to get that microphone and you're going to go, oh, this doesn't really sound that great. And you're probably going to feel disappointed in it. And you're probably not going to be super excited about it. Whereas you could have invested more money in a higher quality microphone that's going to last the rest of your life. It has a 10-year warranty. Hopefully your life is longer than 10 years, but it's still a really long warranty. And it's going to sound great, work great, and cause you no problems. So that's my little spiel on cheap quote-unquote condenser microphones versus a real condenser microphone that sounds pretty good. So I love this microphone. I don't think you could go wrong with the NT1. I think it's a very natural sounding microphone. If you've never had the privilege of being in the same room with me for real, this is pretty much exactly what I sound like. It's not really coloring my voice at all. It's very natural and very accurate, and I like that. And I think that that's a great place to start when you're recording, whether it's voice or instruments or something else, which this microphone could excel at all of those things. Having that nice, natural, accurate reproduction of sound is important because then you can choose how you want to EQ it, mix it, polish it up as time goes on. So now, even though we've talked about the NT1, if you're still not sure if it's the one for you, I do have a whole bunch of other mic review videos that you should review to find the mic that's right for you.